Women are cyclical beings living in a linear world. So, how the heck can we balance keeping up and finding rest? Does it ever feel like you're doing everything right? Eating well, working out, but you are still exhausted? In this episode, we're talking about why sleep isn't just rest, it is the foundation of your health. We're going to break down what rest really is, why your body needs it, and how it literally affects everything that you do. And of course, we will get into some actionable steps so that we can reclaim our rest in a world that tells you to hustle nonstop. I'm a physical therapist, and I've seen it in my patients, but also in myself. I used to get less than 7 hours of sleep a night, and I wondered why I didn't see results in the gym. I wondered why I couldn't focus in class when I was in school. Even conversations with my boyfriend, I was thinking that maybe I had ADHD. Was I even trying hard enough? I've learned that part of self-care and filling my cup is literally just as simple as getting some rest. And by the end of this episode, you will understand why it is such a non-negotiable. So let's get into it, besties. This is your sister, the doctor. This is my first episode. I am going to give you some doctor advice, aka I'm going to talk about like the science behind the topic, and then I'm going to give you some sister advice because sometimes you need a doctor and sometimes you need a sister, and I'm here to be both for you. So let's just nerd out a little bit. Yeah, let's nerd out a little bit, guys. Okay, let's talk sleep. Sleep is where your healing happens. You might think, I'll sleep when I'm dead because your life is so freaking busy. But guess what? That's actually going to shorten your life a little bit if you're not sleeping right. So it's really important that we make sure that we know how much sleep we should be getting every single night because us girlies need a little bit more sleep. Sleep literally restores your brain function, balances your hormones, it regulates your immune system, it helps you process emotions, it repairs your muscles. If you're going to the gym and you're not getting good sleep, then guess what? Your muscles are not being built the way that they should. When you're sleep deprived, your brain and your body go into survival mode, also known as fight or flight. So we want to make sure that we're not in fight or flight. Okay? Okay, good talk. So let's talk about circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm. So most of you guys probably do know what that is, but it's a 24-hour sleep-wake cycle based on the amount of light. It's a 24-hour internal clock regulated by the sun, which is really cool because as humans, we are made out of sunlight, which sounds a little woo-woo, but we actually consume plants that have chemicals that were created by photosynthesis. So scientifically, we are made out of sunlight. Pretty cool. It's just energy being transferred. So we are truly dictated by the sun. We would not be here if it weren't for the sun. We love the sun. Anyway, if you've ever wondered why some people are early birds and some people are night owls, it is a mix of genetics and your age and your lifestyle. As you get older, you actually become more of an early bird. When you're younger, you're more of a night owl. Night owls actually have a bit longer of a circadian rhythm, so longer than the 24 hours, versus the early birds just need a little bit more sleep, and we like to get to bed a little bit earlier. I say that because I'm an early bird, self-proclaimed, but I feel like I've been a little bit more night owl lately. No, let's be real. I will fall asleep if you turn on a movie past 8 o'clock. Okay. Normal sleep-wake cycles. When you wake up, there's something called sleep inertia that causes you to feel a bit groggy. And it can last longer and it can be worse if you drink caffeine. You go about your day, you wake up, you're a little bit groggy in the morning, and then you get to your morning peak. So your morning peak is that natural boost in cortisol that happens pretty shortly after you wake up. This is when you have your best focus, reaction times, you're most productive. So we love a good morning peak. And then all of a sudden after lunch, your girl gets really sleepy. It's not just me. Scientifically, it is what our bodies do. There is a natural lull after lunch around 1 to 3 p.m. And this is just part of biology. It's called an afternoon dip. First, we have our grogginess in the morning, cortisol spikes at our morning peak, and then it kind of goes down and we have this afternoon lull, and then we get another little peak toward the end of the day between 6 and 8 p.m. That's our evening peak, and then we start to wind down after that. This is when our brain starts to signal to our body that it's time to go to sleep as the sun is setting. this is preparing your brain to start releasing melatonin, which happens in dim light melatonin onset, DLMO. That's the phase when your brain starts producing melatonin to help you fall asleep. And this happens usually 2 hours before you go to sleep. Now, unnatural light, like screens, can impact this. So a little bit about light. Getting sunlight within the first hour of waking up is the best way to set your internal clock, because back in the day, that's how our bodies worked. We didn't have all these artificial lights back in the day. Outdoor light is 100 times brighter than your typical indoor lighting. Modern living limits our natural light exposure, as you may know if you have a full-time job or if you're a full-time student. So the indoor lights are not bright enough to regulate our circadian rhythm, so our bodies are all out of whack when we're not going outside first thing in the morning. Easier said than done because we've been in the habit for so long, but scientifically, this is how our body functions. It functions best if you get light first thing in the morning. A study in 2022 showed that being exposed to indoor light before you go to sleep reduced melatonin secretion by 71%. Not only did it reduce melatonin secretion by 71%, it also delayed it by 90 minutes. So we're going to bed later and we're having less melatonin, so we're not falling asleep as easy because of our lights. So next we're going to talk about sleep debt and social jet lag. And this is probably one of the main takeaways I want you to get out of today. So many people don't really understand, or they underestimate how much sleep can really affect them. Sleep debt accumulates when you consistently don't get enough sleep. So say you normally need 8 hours of sleep per night. Say I got 6 hours of sleep last night and 7 hours of sleep the next night. I would have 3 hours of sleep debt. And this adds up until we get to the 2-week mark. So you always are running in your 2-week cycle of sleep debt. So as you can imagine, if you are losing sleep an hour every night, you could be 14 hours of sleep debt by the end of 2 weeks. Social jet lag is a really interesting term, but that basically means that when your weekend and your weekday sleep-wake times don't line up with each other. For example, if you are catching up on sleep on the weekend. So they've actually done studies on sleep debt and social jet lag. In 2019, they did a study and they found that people with more than 2 hours of social jet lag had 2 times the risk of metabolic syndrome, prediabetes, and diabetes. 2 times the risk for just 2 hours of social jet lag or more. Chronic sleep debt, so 4 hours per night for more than 6 days, impairs insulin sensitivity and glucose control, which also triggers prediabetes. I actually recommend this book. It's called Good Energy by Dr. Casey Means. She talks a lot about it in her book. So some of these studies that I'm pulling from are actually from her book. So let's talk a little bit about sleep inertia and caffeine. Caffeine just masks your sleep debt, but it doesn't fix it. Obviously, if we actually get sleep, that's going to fix our sleep debt. Caffeine blocks a neurotransmitter called adenosine that builds up the longer you're awake and signals you to sleep. Basically, caffeine is just kind of a band-aid covering up our lack of sleep. And caffeine's half-life is 5 to 7 hours, so caffeine can stay in your system for 10 to 14 hours after you consume it. So really, we shouldn't be drinking a ton of caffeine if we want to get good night's sleep. There are a lot of studies on your hormones and metabolism when it comes to sleep loss. Artificial indoor light is linked to insulin resistance and a 51% increased of type 2 diabetes. A University of Geneva study found that just 2 days of light deprivation or 1 extra hour of evening light decreased insulin sensitivity. Normal weight adults sleeping less than 6.5 hours need 50% more insulin to maintain normal blood sugar. Chronic sleep loss raises cortisol, increases stress and inflammation, and impairs or destroys mitochondria function. That's crazy. So as you can see, there's a lot of things that are impacting your metabolic health. So this is a sensitive subject, but they've done studies on this, guys. And insulin sensitivity is higher in the morning. So eating high carb meals late at night after 8:30 p.m. scientifically significantly increases insulin and glucose levels compared to morning consumption, which is why maybe somebody's recommended that you not eat late at night or you stop eating a few hours before you go to sleep. Modern Americans average up to 11 eating events per day. Do you guys eat 11 times a day? I don't know. 75% of our intake occurs afternoon. That makes sense. People skip breakfast. And over half of our eating occurs during a 15-hour window. Sleep is foundational for energy, metabolism, hormone balance, insulin regulation. No amount of diet, exercise can override chronic sleep loss. Ooh, baby. That one hits home. No amount of diet, exercise can override chronic sleep loss because it will mess with your hormones and your metabolism and your energy and your insulin regulation. Let's talk about daylight savings time and circadian disruption. Even small shifts in sleep-wake timing, like daylight savings time or flying across time zones, can cause inflammation, cognitive issues, and mood disruptions. Yeah, that's relatable. I feel like last summer when I flew from Washington State back here, I was just like completely knocked out. So we're going to talk about one of my absolute favorite topics now, which is sleep and your menstrual cycle. Your hormones and your sleep are obviously very connected. When your body as a woman goes through different cycles, your sleep needs are different. With the luteal phase, after you ovulate, your body temperature rises, which can disrupt your sleep. Many women also experience insomnia or lighter sleep before their period due to drops in progesterone and estrogen. And women report needing greater sleep needs during menstruation and deeper sleep during the follicular phase. Okay, guys, you heard the science about sleep from my latest research. So let me give you some sister advice based on the research that I have found. So we're going to start with some actionable things that you can do starting tonight. First things first, I want you to track your sleep. I have been obsessed with tracking my sleep for literally as long as I can remember before COVID. Like, as soon as I got a Fitbit, I was obsessed with looking at like my REM and my light and my deep sleep. But you can do this with your iPhone. You can do it with a Fitbit. You can do it with an Oura Ring. I also use this app called Rise that I really like, and I got a lot of the information from today from. Not sponsored or anything, but I really enjoyed that app as well. So first of all, track your sleep. Then, after you track your sleep, I want you to calculate your social jet lag. So your social jet lag is the midpoint between the time you wake up and the time you go to bed. So calculate this for your weekend days and your weekdays. And guys, it shouldn't be any more than 2 hours. Ideally 90 minutes or less, which blows my mind as somebody who works. My shifts are 7 to 3 or 8:30 to 7, and I like to catch up on sleep over the weekends. And now I'm trying to be a little bit more consistent with my sleep because there's so many risks associated with having this social jet lag. My boyfriend and I were noticing that Mondays were really hard to wake up in the morning because there was such a difference between waking up, say, at 11 when we were sleeping in on Sundays and then waking up at 5:30 on Monday, So that's social jet lag. We want to minimize that as much as we can. Obviously, it's not realistic to wake up at 5:30 every day. I will say I try to keep it within a little window. So the earliest I wake up is 5:30, and I've even pushed this back a little bit. I'm like, okay, I have to get ready a little bit quicker in the morning so I can wake up at 6. So then I have that 2-hour window on the weekends. Okay, I can wake up at 7:30 on the weekends and, still feel like I'm sleeping in, but I'm still within that window of time that's safe. Push it to 8 o'clock. Obviously, it's not going to work every weekend. Obviously, if you have kids, this may not work, but just trying to be more routine with it in general is going to be really helpful. The third thing I want you to do is shift your schedule by 30 minutes to stay in a safe range. So if you need to adjust your sleep schedule, try to just go to bed earlier or wake up a little bit earlier, just by like 30 minutes a day so that you're closer within those windows to minimize that social jet lag. The week before daylight savings this past year, I was doing a lot of research on sleep, and I started to shift my schedule like the week before daylight savings. So, like, say that we're losing an hour of sleep, I would start making up for that the week leading up to it so I wasn't so tired. And then vice versa, when we fall back, I would adjust accordingly to that. Gotta love daylight savings time, but that's why everybody's so off right after. So, number 1, track your sleep. Number 2, calculate your social jet lag. And then number 3, shift your schedule by 30 minutes to stay in a safe range. You can do 30 minutes a week. You could do 30 minutes every few days, but just so you're not completely messing with your rhythm. Okay. And then 4th, I want you to try to get some light in the morning. It is so much easier said than done when you work like 7 to 3 or whatever. If you're working a 9 to 5, if it's cold where you live, the weather's not good, if it's raining, it's so much easier said than done. On social media, it's so hard to look at people and be like, because they'll go out and to the rain or into a blizzard and you're like, I'm getting my morning sun, and you just want to be like, whatever, like, I'll just stay in bed. But like, it is truly so important that you get that morning sunlight. And I do notice that on days that I step outside first thing, that my mood is better. Just give yourself a week to try it out, and I think you might see the difference yourself. So stepping out in the morning, and then before you go to bed, I know it's so impossible to stay off the screen sometimes before you go to sleep. At least try to dim the lights. Getting a red light or an amber light might be helpful, kind of set the mood. Just consider your lighting before and after bed just to help regulate your system a little bit. Something else that we didn't talk about that I learned through my research, naps. Naps as an adult, they recommend that you don't take a nap 8 hours before you go to sleep, which I'm like, that's half the day, but whatever. So you can have either a power nap or you can have a full-on nap. So a recommended power nap, I believe, is 10 to 20 minutes long, and then a full-on nap is, I believe, 50 to 100 minutes long. When you wake up from a full-on nap, you're going to be a little bit more groggy just because you've been through all the sleep stages. So you're going to wake up with some grogginess, versus a power nap is really short. You don't have enough time to go through the stages. You can nap to help pay off your sleep debt. So naps aren't a bad thing. I recommend them if you like naps. It's been a while since I've taken a nap, but I do love a good, like, out in the sun nap. Another thing that I could challenge you guys to do is to kind of create a little sleep ritual, anchoring your evening with habits that's telling your brain it's time to go to sleep. So a warm shower or a bath, a light stretch, legs up on the wall. I've been doing that in reading lately, and I've been really loving that. Reading kind of makes me feel like I'm going to fall asleep. Meditation, soft music, make your room cool, dark, and quiet. And remember, your bed is literally for sleeping. So try to only sleep in your bed. Try not to like do work in your bed or just hang out in your bed throughout the day, because your brain thinks it's for sleep. So it's for sleep. Also, another thing about creating rituals is like, rest is just a vibe. So set the scene to help your body like chill out and get ready for sleep. We need all the nervous system regulation that we can get in this crazy world. And if setting a nighttime ritual is going to help regulate your nervous system, there is no harm in trying it. You can make yourself a little sleepy girl mocktail, light a candle, read a book, journal, whatever. Also, working with your body instead of against it. Honor the season that you're in. You don't have to be the same every day. Your body's need for rest will shift with your menstrual cycle. We're going to have to do an episode on cycle syncing, because everyone here may not know exactly what all the phases are of the cycle. So we definitely will do an episode about that. If you are familiar with cycle syncing, just know that around your period, you might need a little bit more rest, and that's okay. Just listen to your body at the end of the day. Women are cyclical beings living in a linear world. So when we have our cycle, we're in a cyclical nature. Our circadian rhythm is also a circular nature. Let me try that again. The menstrual cycle is a circular pattern. The circadian rhythm is a circular pattern. We're just going to go with that. Okay. Anyway. Oh, man. Circular and cyclical. Those are like words that are really easy to combine. All in all, listen to your body. So just to run through things that you can start implementing tonight. Number 1, start tracking your sleep. Number 2, calculate your social jet lag. Number 3, start shifting your schedule by like 30 minutes a day just to stay within a safe range. Number 4, attempt to get sunlight first thing in the morning and dim your lights in the evening. Finally, I want you guys to kind of shift your mindset about rest. Rest doesn't mean that you're being lazy. Rest is listening to your body's natural cycles and protecting the energy that you have. We live in a linear world, right? And we are cyclical beings. So we follow the circadian rhythms. We follow the menstrual cycle as women. Our being is very cyclical. We have seasons, right? Versus there's a 24-hour day and it's day and night. We have to go to work, come home, do our obligations. If you have kids, that's a lot. We live in this hustle culture, so we need to try to support our bodies when we can because they are cyclical and they are sensitive sometimes. Rest helps you regulate your nervous system. It is overwhelmed if you are continuing to hustle, and sometimes instead of doing more, we should be doing less, and it is so hard to do less in this society. Rest is a requirement, though. It is not a reward. It's not something that we know by the time we retire, oh, now I can rest. And that's a lot of unlearning that we have to do because I know for me personally, my values growing up is work hard and keep trying and keep working, have good work ethic, be the best in school, all of that similar to maybe the way that you were brought up or maybe very different, but ultimately, the rewiring we have to do to our brain is, okay, our nervous system actually really needs the rest in order for our body to function properly. Every day, you can ask yourself, what's something that feels restorative to me? And it may be different day to day, depending on where you are in your menstrual cycle, or what time of day it is, or what season it is outside, because we are cyclical beings, right? Something that could be a really fun thing that you can do is to build a rest menu that you can choose from that's beyond just taking a nap and sleeping. So when I say a rest menu, there are different types of rest, and I'm just going to briefly go through these. If you want to grab a pen and paper just to write them down, and then maybe like under each category, you could write down a couple different menu items underneath each type of rest. So we have your physical rest. So that's napping, sleeping, lying down, doing a meditation, doing breath work, something physical. It could even be exercise. Exercise is considered physical rest. If your mind has been working all day, exercising can help you unwind. Then there's mental rest, quiet time, screen-free, reading a book, sitting outside in nature. Emotional rest, having a safe space to be in with supportive people. Sensory rest, minimizing light and sound. Creative rest, so looking at art, music, being in nature. Social rest, either being in solitude because your social battery is drained, or surrounding yourself with people that really fill your cup. This one's a huge one for me because as a PT, I work with so many people and it's such a joy that I get to impact so many people's lives. But sometimes at the end of the day, I literally can't even get on a FaceTime call with my girlies because I just can't. My brain cannot handle. And if you know, you know. Shout out to Katie, my best friend, who literally does not understand that. But anyway, and then we've got your spiritual rest, which doesn't have to be religious. It can be, but it can be prayer. It can be meditation. It's connection to something greater. So the buckets of rest: physical rest, mental rest, emotional rest, sensory rest, creative rest, social rest, and spiritual rest. Rest is not a one-size-fits-all. Your rest changes throughout your life and throughout your cycles. creating a menu is really helpful because some days you don't know what you need, and then you can look at that list and be like, oh yeah, today if I went to sit outside and paint in my backyard, that would feel like rest. And then other days that feels like a lot of work. And sometimes we just need to like literally lay in bed and do nothing. Turn on a comfort movie or something, you know. Some other tips for protecting your rest: setting a bedtime that supports your ideal hours, like literally sitting down and, okay, these are the hours I work and this is when I can go to bed, and sticking to it. Asking for support from the people you live with, from your loved ones. There's this really great app called Finch, also not sponsored. Me and my friends have been playing around with it, and basically you have a little pet and you have little habits, and some of the habits are like going to bed on time. So if you check off, I went to bed on time, your little bird pet, you know, notifies your friend's bird, and they're like, woo, we got the we did the goal together. So if you want to be friends with me on Finch, I've been doing it for a couple of years, but yeah, if you want to be friends with me on Finch and work through habits together, that would be super fun. But anyway, holding yourself accountable with people, going to bed at a certain time, and you cannot get perfect sleep every night. It's okay. All right, guys. So we have officially gotten through the first episode of Your Sister the Doctor. Woo! And I just want to say that this has been a long time coming. I've been working on this. So this is episode 1 of the season of Recipe to Your Health. And the R in recipe stands for reclaiming rest. And that's really the big thing that I want you to take home with you today, is that you can reclaim your rest. I just wanted to leave you a final word about rest. Some affirmations. I want you to close your eyes and I'm going to read these affirmations to you. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode, and next week we will be going through letter E, so stay tuned. Do not have to earn rest. I do not need to explain my need for rest. I allow myself to rest fully and freely. I give myself permission to say,